All right, let's jump right in. Picture this. You're at the helm of one of the fastest growing companies in the world, and you're hit with a totally new kind of problem. A daily flood of data so huge it's about to completely overwhelm you. Well, that's not a hypothetical. That's the very real situation that gave birth to Apache Hive.
So back in the early days of Facebook, the scale was just insane. We're not talking a little stream of data here. We're talking thousands of terabytes of new information hitting their systems every single day. And if that wasn't enough, people were uploading 500 million photos daily. This wasn't just a big data problem, you know? It was more like a big data emergency, a scale that was completely uncharted territory.
So that really is the multi-billion-dollar question, isn't it? How on earth do you make any sense of that chaos? All the tools that everyone knew and loved, the standard databases, they just weren't built for this. They would simply buckle under the sheer weight of it all. It was clear a completely new way of thinking was needed, and fast.
And this slide just nails the core dilemma they were facing. Look, on one hand, you've got your traditional relational databases. Super familiar, right? Everybody knew how to write SQL queries for them, but they just couldn't handle the volume. They'd collapse. Then, on the other hand, you had this beast called Hadoop. This thing could absolutely handle the scale, but here's the catch, and it's a big one. You basically had to be a specialized Java programmer to get anything done. That left most of your data analysts completely on the sidelines. So, what do you do? What do you do when the tool that speaks your language can't do the job, and the tool that can do the job doesn't speak your language? Well, you build a translator. And that is exactly what the engineers at Facebook did. They built a bridge to connect these two completely different worlds, and they called it Hive.
Now here's the key thing to understand. Apache Hive isn't really a database in the traditional sense. It's more like a super clever translation layer that sits right on top of Hadoop. It lets analysts write queries in a language called HiveQL, which looks and feels almost exactly like the SQL they already know. Then, Hive does all the heavy lifting in the background, translating that simple-looking query into a complex job that Hadoop can actually understand and run.
Okay, so let's walk through how this magic trick works. First, a user writes a query that feels totally normal, just like SQL. Behind the scenes, Hive's driver and compiler grab that query, parse it, and figure out the smartest way to get the answer. Then, the execution engine takes that plan and turns it into a series of complex MapReduce jobs. That's the native language of Hadoop. Finally, Hadoop takes over, crunches through terabytes of data across all its machines, and sends back a nice, clean result. And the most beautiful part? The analyst never, ever had to touch a single line of Java.
Right, so Hive is our translator. It can take our questions and get answers from Hadoop. But how does it organize all that raw, messy data in the first place? How does it impose some kind of structure on the chaos? Let's get into that.
At the very heart of this organization is something called the metastore. Honestly, the best way to think about it is like Hive's brain. Or, the analogy here is perfect, a library's card catalog. It's this central hub that stores all the metadata, the data about the data. It keeps track of things like table names, what kind of data is in each column, and most importantly, where to physically find the data files scattered across Hadoop. Without the metastore, Hive would just see a giant, unusable mess. Now, when you're setting things up, Hive gives you a really important choice. You can create a managed table, where Hive takes total ownership. It controls the data files, and here's the scary part. If you drop that table, Hive deletes the data for good. Poof, gone. Or you can create an external table. In this case, Hive only manages the metadata. It's just pointing to data that lives somewhere else. So if you drop an external table, only that little pointer gets deleted. Your actual data is safe and sound. It's a really critical difference, especially when you're thinking about data safety.
To make queries run way faster, Hive uses this awesome technique called partitioning. The file cabinet analogy here is spot on. Imagine you're looking for a sales report from June of 2024. Instead of having Hive search through every single file from the beginning of time, you can partition your data by date. That way, when you ask your question, Hive knows to go straight to the June 2024 drawer and ignore everything else. It's a simple idea that has a massive impact on performance.
And we can take it one step further with something called bucketing. If partitioning is about creating drawers in our cabinet, then bucketing is like having nicely sorted folders inside each drawer. Within a single partition, say for a specific day, you can bucket the data into a set number of files based on something like a customer ID. This is a huge help for optimizing certain kinds of queries, especially when you're joining big tables together. It's just another clever layer of organization to speed things up.
Okay, so we've got the how. We know how it's built and how it organizes data. But what about the what? What do people actually do with this thing? What are Hive's superpowers out in the real world?
Well, Hive is a real workhorse. For many companies, it became the foundation of their entire data warehousing setup. It's a natural fit for business intelligence, letting analysts run all sorts of ad hoc queries and summarize huge datasets on the fly. And it's amazing for things like processing massive server logs or even indexing tons of documents for a search system. It's incredibly versatile.
So why did Hive get so popular so fast? It really comes down to these three things. First, that SQL-like interface was an absolute game changer. It just blew the doors open for so many people. Second, scalability. Since it's built on Hadoop, if you need more power, you just add more machines. Simple as that. And finally, it's extensible. Hive was built to play nice with a whole ecosystem of other data tools, which made it a super flexible part of any data stack. But, and this is a big but, no tool is perfect for everything. Hive is not a silver bullet. It was built for a very specific job, and it's just as crucial to understand what it's not for.
This is super important to get. Hive is a master of one thing: batch processing. That means chewing through huge piles of data after it's been collected. It is absolutely 100% not built for real-time stuff. Because of that whole translation process we talked about, there's always going to be a bit of a delay. So you would never, ever use Hive to power your online shopping cart or any app that needs instant results and quick row-by-row updates. Wrong tool for the job, plain and simple.
And really, this quote says it all. This is the ultimate takeaway. Hive's true genius wasn't just about the cool tech. It was about its philosophy. It took the revolutionary but complex power of Hadoop and it democratized it. It put that power into the hands of this huge community of analysts and data scientists who already spoke the one universal language of data: SQL.
Which kind of leaves us with a really interesting question to wrap things up. Hive was this genius bridge for that first huge wave of big data, right? It connected the world everyone knew, SQL, to the brand new, complicated world of Hadoop. So as our data problems just keep getting bigger and way more complex, it really makes you wonder, what's going to be the next brilliant bridge that comes along and makes all this new complexity simple enough for everyone to use?